just abreast with everything that's going on, and to also offer sort of clarification. There's a lot of misconception, a lot of misinformation, disinformation that is out there in the public space. So the program is going to be unfiltered, unbiased, unapologetic. State affairs, the Gambia's truth table, the justice table, unmasking issues of law and the state. Every Thursday, 8 p.m. GMT. Myself, Melville Robertson Roberts, and Dr. Omar Malmo Sambu, as we dissect the pressing issues of our nation. Again, no filters, no bias, just straight talk, direct to the people. So be part of the conversation and let's take it on. Over
Now,
to you, Omar.
now you get up and put your lights on.
Nigga, I'm putting no damn light on.
You
Leave
got,
me
you got, you
alone.
got, you got to respect the audience, man. You better wake up. You can't be
Uh-uh.
in the dark and nobody can see
You
you.
can't blackmail me and stop
Okay,
Jaha
now,
saying you. The
now, now,
audience don't want
now,
to see
now
my
we're gonna
face.
tell the audience to decide
Okay,
if you
let them
gotta put your
decide.
lights
Okay,
on.
fine. Okay, let them decide. If
If
I
it
have
does,
20 comments from people that I
20 is
should
a
put them,
lot. The
yeah,
first 5 comments.
no, 20.
If they agree that you gotta put your light on, you gotta do that.
Okay, let's see about that. My people love me, and they know I can't put my lights on. You know, I have long hair, and I didn't go to the salon to braid my hair. My hair is a complete mess. It will actually distract people from the issues at hand right now.
Don't worry, man. Get a cap on you, or just leave it the way it is. Your hair
My friend, take it
is
on.
always,
So, what's your take
you know.
on the show every Thursday? Let's hear
Yeah,
your.
you did well with that. You sounded like a proper journalist. I don't know where you've got your orientation, but you're a jack of many trades and a master of a lot of them. So but I'm not surprised. So there are times when we have issues of conversation, and I say, Melvin, you got to step up for the student government, and then you make speeches that would just leave you know, everybody's mouth open. So it's good that you actually gave up that very professional rundown as if you are giving us a promo. So probably we should pay you for the great promo. So they say put on your light. Everybody's saying the same. Put on your light. Put on your light. Put on your light. Eh?
You know one thing I love
you know,
about Gambians?
put on
They
your
are
light.
so
Put on
nafe,
your
huh?
light. These folks love me, man. Put on your light. Thank you, y'all.
Oh Lord, are you serious?
The
If I
campaign is on. Put on your light. Put on your
put on
light.
my light means I have to even change my location. I'm comfortably on my bed. Oh
Get
my
off your
God.
bed. Get off your bed, man. It's early to be on bed, man. I mean, what you doing like that? That's not you.
But old age is catching up on me, man. What are you talking about?
I'm
Okay, let
I'm
me see if I can find a cap.
I'm
We
I'm,
want
I'm
we want the full face. We remember
yes.
transparency.
Thank you. Y'all are very right. Transparency. He's got to
Okay,
be
let me see if I
transparent.
can find. Let me see if I can find a cap, man. So if I can't find one, Omar, then trust me.
Everybody said you got to put your lights on. So do what the people want. The people want transparency. So you got to be accountable. We got to see you. We got to see the person talking to us and what exactly is he talking about.
Gambia is a very dangerous country, right?
By everybody been a fatal guy, fatal the other. One thing, Mel. Let me use this opportunity to say that.
Right. Me, I don't care. That's the
No, but
difference.
but 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 okay. Let me just say this. Gur, kubah nga boy. Gis nga doomi adama. Sa bahay rek moy tax you still got people staying with you, and people will stay with you for the rest of lifetime. People like me, I don't look for what other people got to say to validate somebody or friends that you know and then you've known for ages. But one thing you also know, if people don't talk about you, know that you're not doing nothing productive or good for society. But as well, you can't keep up with everybody and all the shit they put out there. They'll put out shit, man. I remember one time I had to teach a course at the university while I was leaving. Somebody was talking about Malmo in my presence, did not even know that this dude is Malmo because I appear very little and he thought he was just one big guy, whatever, who was teaching some courses over here. And I was like, took off it, yeah. I don't know what deful fit dara what dofé ngay dox yoon mi kan moy wax si dof. Nobody even talks about you. So unless and until there is something that somebody looks and likes within and around and could say one thing or another. So, we've been through it, man. We've done a lot together. There are those days that, you leave everything you got to do to drop folks at either MDI for 10, 15 minutes. We've been in cars where every other 5 minutes people are calling, asking for help. And you would stop by an ATM to give ATM supervisors money for people to come and pick there. So what do you need to prove to anybody? What do you need to fight anybody for? Yo, ñu la xam te ñu xam la te ñu xam la dëgga would not come out here to say something about you. I'm not here to.
No, I don't. I don't even.
Malmo really doesn't. I wouldn't say. Look, you nga doomi Adama. Your beginning is people and your end is people. When you realize that, you would never say, "I don't need anything from nobody." But the fact of the matter is that I wouldn't say Melville sell me money from the UK. Why good? Man lumaham, a grateful heart would always say that even when there were troubles, even when I was student president, people would go report at State House. You stood and say, you know what, we got to calm this situation. Because I don't know, they were never genuine. And whoever befriends you and tomorrow has something to say was never your friend. So it's not everybody who says shit. Sometimes we got to fight though. Don't take it for whatever. I'm not ñeneen xamantene fo nga taxaw na nga dëgëral sa bop nak. Wow. But there are many others. Look, you are a great sample to this country, man. A lot of people admire what you do, man. Look at that positive energy that every other person will be like, you know what, I like this guy's analysis. I don't agree with him most of the time, but we spend hours to sit here and talk. It doesn't make us money, but because we love this country, this is where we come from. And of course, that's my brother. I leave what I do to come down to your other estate and that your beautiful house and then do whatever we gotta do and then go out there, eat food wherever and then go down Bakau, go down Banjul, and so what? Business you can la. Man, no matter how whose business is it? But somebody else with their negative energy, let them deal with their negativity. At the end of the day, money. That fatal they did not create you, they can't do nothing. Somebody who saw you with your grown teeth can never break them because they don't know how you grow them in your mouth. This is what I believe in. And then when it crosses the line, why damay taxaw dëgëral suma boppa nag luy xew na xew. But I will never really look at people that do not really add any value to society. One, they are nowhere close to the level somebody matches. Bro, why? Why, yo, I samba boy. Sometimes nag, ama kumasi nangu sa telephone mi madam pack ko fele. I samba boy, nelen ñu dem topoto ji lenen boy. Why, yo, ñi luñ xam ak lu ñoy gis. Analyze. It's not what somebody jumps and says and all the kind of fabrications and stories people put out there. Doesn't make any sense. Gis nga nit ku am xam-xam te nga xam looy def. Boy wax sa ñi dañ koy gis yow. So look, there are a lot of positive energy out there. Gambia has a lot of good people in as much as it has some toxic and disgusting people, but they cannot outshadow and of course control the narratives of conversations. It's got to be positive, and the positive people will always be there to listen, to learn, and of course to agree and disagree. That's not the subject of this discussion. A lot of things have passed, man. Our condolences to you. I would still take this opportunity on behalf of all our listeners. We pray that your dear mother finds a way in heaven, and that's life. Aduna mo mel nunu. Kufi judo rek xamal ne bes dina ñew. Malmo and Melville would say bye bye. One would leave the other on earth, and that's life. At the end of the day, that's creation, and that's basically the purpose of life. But the most important thing is there's a great woman who has lived a very purposeful and of course fulfilled life. So alhamdulillah, sandayala, of course you're a grown man who have done a lot of good, to society and to people. So, that's a mother who should be proud of a son who is grown and, of course, has helped society. And, of course, you two should be proud enough to say, maybe they, she has lived a very purposeful life and, of course, a dignified life. And that's just it, man. Sandayala Bambari, We've missed out on a lot. We've not had a lot of talk within that period, and a lot had happened in the Gambia. We stopped. And, of course, our last conversation was that we know Sankari and Co would be subpoenaed to court. Of course, we've seen UDP and all the things that are happening with the, standard bearer issues. Talib and 10 others, Hussein Udabo and co, all, are having some interviews here and there. The twists and turns within the United Democratic Party we've seen. We've seen Gala versus, Pura. And of course, we've seen some positions and analysis around that. And, how do they call that law? That very
The public
famous law in the
Public
Gambia,
Order
Public
Act,
Order Act.
specifically Section 15.
Yeah, which I have no clue about. But of course, I rely on your legal analysis and I just inject in some logic around it, which would make a lot of sense as well to have a quick rundown and a look at. Aside that, it's politics towards 2026 and the Gambia right there and a lot of things happening. So the conversation starts from there. First, I think we would have to look at, because you've already made some conversations around that. We've seen this, how do they call it? Is it the internet tariff? The internet tariff saga, the young people, the police, and the Public Order Act. So you've had a whole perspective on it, which a lot of people probably did listen to. And I think the hot topic here would be, which we should start with before other people go to sleep. The United Democratic Party at this stage, where are we heading to? 11 persons applied. A lot of talk is between two main contenders. I'm not sure if the 9 others are considered just participants or really, contestants. But what is it from your own perspective, and what exactly should we be expecting, and what is going to be the end of the twist and turn come end of next week?
Okay. Thanks, Dr. Omar Malmo Sambo. So let's just get into business. But just a disclaimer. So basically, I think I hardly sleep at night. I'm always writing. 90% of what people say about me, I don't see. And this is what people don't understand. I don't see it. I mean, the negative bit, I don't see it. The way social media works, most especially Facebook is a traffic. It's like a highway code. You go through a path that you want to. It's like going on your sat nav and putting in your location and your eventual destination. It will give you a few different routes to take. And you would look at where the traffic is most dense, where you feel that, okay, if I take this route, it's going to delay me. And if I take this route, it will take me to my destination faster with less hurdles. That's how Facebook operates, and that's how social media works. And for people that have been on social media long, you understand this. So I have learned from a very young age that I don't know what you were saying, by the way, because I left to go look for my cup. I went downstairs. but I have learned from a very early age that people or society tend to go after people they want to be like but can't be like, to people who they know are filled with substance, people they know have integrity. And what they try to do is like a high hanging fruit, and they try to pull you to bring you down to their level so that you could share a common platform. So I believe I don't have a common platform to share with such individuals. So 90% of the time, yeah, there are those moments that you would have good friends that would say, oh, did you see what this person said? Did you see what that person said? And I've made it quite clear that don't do that to me, because if you do that to me, you are the one who's actually insulting me. Don't come and tell me what somebody said. I'm not interested. It's not my business. So I don't see most of these things, quite honestly. But I am a person that sometimes I'm sleeping in the middle of the night, I'll have a thought in my mind. I'll take my phone and I'll write something. I wake up in the morning and I see hundreds of comments. Sometimes when I'm writing, I'm not even talking about politics. I'm talking about my personal life, maybe my experiences, my encounters. But then people give it a political dimension, I accept. And times when I write political writings, like things that should lean towards a political connotation, or some individual will take it and give it a personal context. So that's life. And I can't control that. But if you know me, you've known me for quite a long while. I am my authentic self. There's no human being born of man or woman that can derail me. I'm highly focused. My objective is clear. There's nothing that can derail me. And I know I can only be silenced in death. As long as I'm speaking my truth, as long as my conscience is clear, that is my gain. And that's where I put my trust and hope on. Thank you for the condolences. I greatly appreciate it. Yeah, she lived a beautiful life, a good life. Sad, not easy. My life for the past number of years evolved and revolved around her, basically. So still tough a little bit, but we're trying to get back into routine. That's what she would have wanted me to do anyway. So that's exactly what we're doing. Now, public order act. No, you jumped. You said you wanted to do UDP. Yeah, UDP. The mighty UDP, United Democratic Party. I saw a few flying comments saying, well, Mel, you resigned from the party. Why are you talking about UDP? And I keep reminding them that UDP is a public institution. It has a stake in our political discourse. So I will continue to talk about UDP. And if you think I shouldn't talk about UDP, take me to court. And I will talk, and we will talk about UDP. So the United Democratic Party, why is it that there's so much noise? It's simple. UDP has a great stake in our national discourse, in our politics, and in our potential governance.
Mm-hmm.
So whilst people may feel that the substantive focus is on UDP, it's not. The substantive focus is on who will become the flag bearer of the UDP. Because the flag bearer of the UDP will invariably become a national icon politically, where Gambians from all walks of life, irrespective of political affiliation, irrespective of ethnic background, irrespective of social status, would have this person vie for the highest office in the land against the incumbent. So now it's a UDP issue, it's a UDP matter. But once a flag bearer is chosen, it becomes a national matter, it becomes a Gambian matter.
Yeah.
And UDP cannot continue to say this is a UDP matter, because it will transcend beyond party lines. And you would start to look at national lines. You would start to look at what's good for the Gambia. You would start to look at who's the best fit for Gambia. So that's what is going to happen. So you and I and every other person, voters and non-voters alike, will have a stake, will have a say in who becomes the flag bearer eventually, because that person will be running for the highest office of the land. That person will not be running for a UDP office. It wouldn't be a party office. It will be a national office, constitutionally mandated. So that is why it is very important. The second reason why it is important is because we have seen from or since the inception of the United Democratic Party, there has only been one flag bearer, and that has been His Excellency Lawyer Ousainou Darboe. Now, the word on the street, be it that this is truth or untruth, is a subject for another day. The word on the street is nobody has dared to put up a simultaneous application when that of Lawyer Ousainou Darboe is on the table. Okay?
Yeah.
So he has always, if I'm right, even if there are exceptions to where there has been a contest, he has mostly gone unopposed. Even where there have been people who had showed interest, individuals who had showed interest in the flag bearer position, there has been a silent sort of force that would make them not to put up an application for the same position It may be out of fear, it may be out of reverence and respect, and it may just be as a result of the backlash that we are now seeing being openly demonstrated on social media, on the streets of Gambia, and in basically every walk of life. Now, the third dimension as to why this is important is because for the first time in the UDP's history, we have a sitting elected official vying for the flag bearer position. Now, this is what I'm going to say, which is going to become contentious now. And I wouldn't be surprised if I will see this particular statement of mine being cropped up and you'll see it all over tomorrow.
And so what?
But regardless of Lawyer Dabo's, I mean, he knows I have the greatest admiration and respect for him, but we're talking facts.
Yeah.
Now, regardless of his experience, regardless of the political sacrifices, regardless of the contributions that have been immense, vast in Gambia's political life, he has never been a public elected official.
Yep.
So Lawyer Dabo has been elected as flag bearer of the United Democratic Party, which tells you it's a party election that is squarely within the party. You cannot say that for Mayor Bensouda. This is a public official that have tested the votes of the overwhelming majority of the Gambian public, not once, but twice, where the people that voted him into office cut across party lines, cut across ethnic bearings, cuts across social status, cuts across everything basically.
Including the energy that the incumbent put in his last re-election, that the president had to come out. So, you know, the context in which he was re-elected is quite something to recognize.
So again, and that is why I said he's got the validation of public office, being elected not once but twice. Now, with all the experiences of Lawyer Usainu Dabo, with all the reverence and respect, he has never been tested nationally where he has won, where he has gained victory and assumed a political office, being voted upon by the overwhelming majority of Gambians. Radically different from UDP membership. So that is what is different in this UDP flag bearership. So I've tried to break it down into 3 separate points. So what you have is the very respected elderly statesman who has been the face and the force behind the United Democratic Party. And now what you have, on the other hand, is a respected, dynamic, young politician who rode on the backing of the United Democratic Party and this respected elderly statesman, but who has been tested and has proven himself by clenching victory by the overwhelming majority of Gambians. Now, Mayor Bensouda, in his re-election run for his second term in office, ran the most robust political campaign in our history. And that is where you saw for the first time in Gambia's political history an incumbent, a sitting president, running a mayoral campaign.
Yep.
Where for the first time in our political discourse, you had an entire cabinet running a political campaign on the level of mayor. So in his first term in office, he had politically tested the waters of Gambian electorate. But in his second term, even though it was a mayoral election, it had the force and gravity of a presidential election.
Of course.
Because you had a sitting president, you had the deputy speaker of the National Assembly
contesting against a serving minister.
And contesting against a cabinet colleague, a sitting state minister, who, whilst running for office, simultaneously held public office. And where the entire cabinet, the entire government machinery, the entire government structures, both abstract and solid, were behind him.
Yep.
So the second runoff to that election, having the power of incumbency, but him coming out and emerging victorious, even with presidential backing, has invariably catapulted him to a point where he is a political beacon, whether you like it or not.
And a presidential contender.
Whether you like it or not. And this is the fact. This is an existential reality. Now, I saw you ask a question, and your question was, and by the way, I told you nothing misses me on Facebook. You were like, there are 11 contenders. Mm-hmm. Why is he the only one with the focus? It is very simple. It is very simple. He is the only one among all the contenders that have run a robust fight where a sitting president with all the power of incumbency was running against him, and he emerged victorious. He's the only one. Not even Lawyer Dabo has that under his belt, and that's the distinction. That is the distinction. So now, you have two parallel lines running, and you have to do a comparative analysis to understand what is at stake. So you have the venerable, respected leader in the person of Lawyer Dabo, commanding so much regard and respect. Now, a lot of people will give an analysis where they would tell you that he rode on the back and backing and blessing of Lawyer Dabo. But when you look at it, for somebody like me, when I do an analysis divorced of partisan lens, you would have to convince me whether Talib Bensouda riding on the back of the experience and political base of Lawyer Dabo is greater than Lawyer Dabo himself riding on his own political clout. And that would bring you to the point where Lawyer Dabo has run on his political clout but never been able to win the elections. But Aziz Bensouda rode on the back of Dabo against the power of the incumbency and won the election. So that was not Dabo alone. That was Dabo plus the charisma plus everything else that Talib brought. If you look at the equations, And I gave an example of Pythagoras' theorem today on my Facebook post, where every side of the angle is important to give a realistic component of the whole line of the whole triangle.
And lawyer bumun mats nga boy.
So every side is important.
Mhm.
And it comes together to give it that mix.
That's right.
So that's why I said that, and I'm sure people didn't quite understand where I was coming from.
Yeah.
So, and I saw a comment now, and I'll just address that before I let you come in. I saw somebody say that, but KMC is a UDP stronghold. But if you say that KMC is a UDP stronghold, but then there has never been a KMC elected UDP mayor, it goes against that trajectory that you're trying to paint.
That's baseless actually, because it should be based on facts and of course what exists in reality. So can they tell us what exactly UDP has been winning in KMC to actually
So,
give that kind of a
so the point is going back to the substance, to the core of it all, is that Talib is a viable candidate.
Yep.
Lawyer Dabo is a viable candidate. So is lawyer Lamin J. Dabo.
Yep.
But again, the distinguishing factor is lawyer Lamin J. Dabo does not have the political exposure of the Talib Bensouda or the lawyer Dabo.
Yep.
So I'll allow you to take it on from there.
Great. So I would take it from a very controversial point because I would have to focus it on what is currently happening. But first and foremost, I would say that everything you have said is undeniable and irrefutable. There are facts that exist. Either we like this person or we don't. That is not what matters to us. That is quite immaterial. And we are not here to like or dislike anybody, but to tell the facts as they are and as they appear before us in our society. Now, first, look at it. I have these two analogies I did put out there yesterday, two different posts, and then I was looking at it from two different angles. And that is the application of Talib Bensouda versus Usainu Numukunda Dabo. You've said everything around Dabo and everything he has done and who he is in that political party, as well as Talib and profiling them, in the most appropriate way. But here comes something. And often I try to hold people based on what they say and give analysis specifically on what I hear them say. Now, Talib did tell us prior that if Hussein Dabo applies, he will not apply. Fast forward, we saw a list of 11 where Talib's name was and Hussein Dabo's name was. All that is immaterial to me. Now to the wordings of this personnel and the people behind them. That is where I will base my analysis. Now, Talib, for the period we have seen all his actions and activities, we know. After contending with the presidency to a point that he's able to win a re-election, it's obvious that the most appropriate further step would be to challenge the incumbent. At this stage, if you tell Talib, no, you cannot be a presidential candidate, probably you are politically telling him to be redundant. But again, nobody is going to compel Hussein Dabo to resign from politics or to allow other people to run. They might tell you that's a UDP affair, but like you said, UDP is not looking for a government that leads only UDP. It's going to be leading the government of the Gambia. So every Gambian have a stake in it. And that is why Gambians realize that it is a formidable force. So whatever happens within and around it, we should have a say because that is probably a government in waiting in one way or another. Either it wins elections or not, but then that's a potential government and that is not going to be a UDP government, but the government of the Gambia. Then every Gambian has a stake. Now, come to think of it, 11 people on the list. If Dabo applies, I will not apply. But here are the words of Talib. I called to find out at the 11th hour, and I was told that the old man did not apply. He sent in his application. Days later, a list came out that had the name of the old man. Two possibilities: withdraw my candidacy because I did not know and I was told he did not apply by the people responsible for the applications or whatsoever, then I would just withdraw. Whereas he did not withdraw, then he should go all out to say, I want this position and I am contending for it, and I want the UDP to actually choose me because I think I'm in the right mind and state of being to lead this political party to actually win elections in 2026. But whereas he said, I did not know that Hussein Udabo did apply and he did find out from the right authorities and they did not give him a clear information, I now question, why would somebody lie to Talib when they know that the old man applied and they are the people responsible for that? And he did say that if he applies, I will not apply. But why would somebody tell him that the old man did not apply? If somebody did, what is the intention and why did they do that? That is something I really want to know. If somebody did not tell him that, the old man did not apply, then why would Talib say something like that? And I don't think so, in my own view. And I still want to give him that benefit of the doubt, that he will come out and say, I was told he did not apply when he wasn't told. I want to believe that he was told. But who told him that? And what is the purpose of telling the dude, the young man that? Secondly, if I know that the old man applied and I had initially said that if he applies, I will not apply, I will withdraw my application. It's simple. But whereas I did not withdraw, I will not use that statement further to justify why I applied. I would say, of course, I applied without knowing that he did apply. But at this point, I don't think I want to withdraw because I want the position. And because I want the position, I want the party members or the people who are going to select to consider me because I feel that I will be able to support this party going into 2026. Boo demee ba nga xam ne taxaw nga duga nga si géew gi dégalal sa boppa. Don't put yourself at the mercy of another contender. No matter what the United Democratic Party leader did for that party, which is respectable and of course respected, and everybody in one way or another will know that Hussein Dabo is a formidable force and he has always kept his party together in one way or another. But there comes a time in life, même si kër gi sax bàyyi day bàyyil doom yi ñu commencé zere. But whereas that did not happen, and you are trying to, contest against him, don't put yourself at the mercy of this person. Now, then and there, if he did not withdraw his application, I don't think he need to continue to use that statement, how more on a private of apply, because I did ask and I was told he did not. You can easily withdraw and that finishes that. Whereas he did not do that, let him go all in to say, I want the position, and that is it, period. But the second aspect of it would be words and things coming out from the people behind Hussein Dabo. 11 people applied. Generally, the people behind Dabo had no problem with all other applicants. And all their rhetorics and negative energy were directed to this young man. This is a man within your political party. Irrespective of the number of applicants and whatever you people might have in your mind and all that, it must be done within respect and decorum. I'm the man who must suspect. It's either there is an internal desire to kind of betray the young man in one way or another, or to vilify him, or to go into this primaries to so ne pa bi degal na bopa mo fi neka mo fi talk. Kon wax len xale bi from the beginning that you should not run because the old man will remain. Why did they tell him that he did not apply? Are they setting him up for failure, for humiliation? That is something one need to also look into. But the other aspect of it altogether would be, if Hussein Dabo applied, this other guy, the former finance Amadou Sane applied. The people behind Hussein Dabo yesterday were the people behind Amadou Sane today. That speaks to an intelligent mind. What is going on here? Is that a team with different applicants? Probably yes, probably not. That is just my own thinking. And really, anybody can scold you for anything, but that is my own view of things. Do we have camps where those camps have several applicants, yet they belong to the same camp? Very much possible. We have seen that in different political, tussles. I have seen other people who are on that list, whom I know would have said they will never challenge Dabo, but they put in their application. Why? And I know their interest is not to lead the United Democratic Party. So there is an internal politics even within the applicants. Now, the point becomes, if it is evident that the people who are responsible for the selection knew that Usainu Dabo should not be challenged at all, they should clearly tell people that Usainu Dabo should not be challenged. But whereas somebody opted to challenge that and want to lead the political party, you should not vilify them, you should not castigate them, you should not insult them, because that tells more of the political party than the person you are castigating, because it tells a lot to the people who are not registered members of your political party or probably sympathizers of the opposition. Because demba yana ñu waxoon ne talib ku baax la, ku déggu la, ku mandu la, ku mun la. Kon tey boo leen ñu ne dégguwut baaxut benen Adama Barola. That speaks more about you, the person talking about him. Kon añ bàyyante xel. Kaddu boy wax nit ki. Demba bu neexee na neex tey bu dara amee kay moom try to deal with it internally, because this is your internal political party issues. You did not come to the Gambians yet, but then you are kind of fighting, insulting, castigating each other that to that level. What does that tell the person who is sitting just back and watching? So lolu lu am solo la. Now, to conclude on this UDP, whatever that is going on, you talked about other people, and of course, if you look at their profiles and their political characteristics within Gambian society, the two main contenders in this UDP primaries is Talib Bensouda and the Usainu Numukunda Dabo. But also the people who are responsible for that process should have, in my view, clearly told Talib Usainu Dabo did apply. Or Usainu Dabo tell Talib, of course I did apply. And if you said you will not contest against me, I think that is the appropriate thing. So it means to me two things. There is no direct communication between Talib Bensouda and Usainu Dabo leading to these primaries. Is there bad blood? An outsider would want to know. Whereas if there is no bad blood, what exactly is the conflict that people behind the old man would directly be castigating this one? And of course, the people behind the old man can say the same thing about folks behind Talib Bensouda. That should not bring animosity between these two, because you're still within the same political party. Kunchi tana rek ñeneen ñi yëpp dañu waroon a bolo support that person, but that is not the trend that we are seeing within the party. Indeed, this is a formidable political party that has the ability to unseat incumbent. But what you do in your primaries will determine a lot. And the things you say to each other and the things that come out to the ordinary Gambian who is listening will determine a lot going into 2026. There are two things. Talib either is dishonest to himself, or Talib is under a betrayal scheme that he just found himself in the middle of. Ñaar yooyu rek moo mën a am.
No, I don't. Can I come in?
Okay.
So basically, I don't believe that. I personally do not believe that Talib did not know that Usainu Dabo had applied.
At the time when he was sending his application, or after
Yes.
that?
Yes.
Okay.
He might not have known, as in a very concrete sense, that he has actually submitted his application. But if you look at the dynamics that was at play, now the reason why Yankuba Dabo came out and said that he would not apply was because he said Dabo had said that he would apply. So Mr. Dabo, in his interview on West Coast Radio with Peter Gomez, stated clearly that he was going to run for the flag bearership. In fact, he gave reasons where he mentioned about the CPAS survey that was done.
Oh yeah, CEPRAS.
Or is it CEPRAS survey that was done, and where he said that he was not taking that by sitting on his laurels. and that they would take it seriously and they would work on it. That was a solid indicator that he was going to run. So,
Yep.
I mean, I would fight for Talib any day, but I would not lie. And that is the reality. Because it was on the assumption and basis of that interview that Yankuba Dabo came out and said that I am not going to run because Mr. Dabo is running for the flag bearership. Now, the bit about submitting an application or not submitting an application is mere semantics in this area. And for me, that is where I felt that Talib should have been bold enough. He should have been bold enough to say that I had said that I would not run if Mr. Dabo is running. However, circumstances, demands, and a changing dynamics has informed my decision that I am going to run. Now, it is left for you and I, the voter, and I wrote about this prior, to now determine subsequently in the national elections whether we can accept his application on the basis of his integrity as a politician or not. That would have been left with you and I to determine.
Right.
He should not and never have attempted to sugarcoat it, because that made him look bad.
That made him look funny, and actually kind of told us that, no, don't vote for me, vote for the old man, because I had said I was never going to contest against him. I did not know he actually applied. That's why I applied. Now that he applied, so what's the point? Let's just put your application aside and let his go. So man luma don send to si mom mwene na degal bopam dem nga ba taw na, you basically did not know, but now you know. And what are you going to do? I am not withdrawing. I want the position. Not degal bopam lu hew rek na lolu hew. If you win, you know you win. If you did not win, know that the old man or whoever would win. Commend them and life goes on. But playing, I did not know. So that for me made him look funny. But is it also possible?
And not only that, but there's a second tier dimension to that. Because he's saying, I asked, but Talib could have called Mr. Dabo and asked and say, Mr. Dabo, have you applied? This is how I will look at it from an objective position. I don't care who Talib asked. I don't care who said what to him. That is irrelevant. Talib is running for the highest office of the land.
Right.
He has to be able to authenticate facts.
Yeah.
He has to be able to draw a fine line between circumstantial facts and solid, hard, tangible, and real existence of facts.
And politically, not even knowing the people who applied is a political,
So for me, I believe that was an error of judgment on his part, where he said that I asked, because that gives two different pathways to it. One, he did not ask Mr. Dabo because he was not interested in knowing the truth.
Probably that's not the case.
Or two, there is a situation whereby him and Mr. Dabo don't have that point of convergence where he can ask Mr. Dabo the question.
Those are the two possibilities.
So what Talib has done in that statement of his is to leave you and I, the objective person, to now think along those lines.
Yep.
Did he not ask because he did not want to know the truth? Or did he not ask because there was no platform for him to ask? But then the foundation of that is the fact that it is public knowledge that Mr. Dabo had said that he was going to run. In fact, the word on the street was thinking that nobody would put in an application because Mr. Dabo had given an intention that he was going to vie for that position.
Yeah.
So that is my interjection in that. So I'll let you carry on.
That's very right. That's very right. First, even if he did not know, when the list of the 11 came out, Dabo's name was there. Before I go for an interview, I would just withdraw my candidacy. But again, if what he said gave us the platform that either there is no good relationship between Talib and Dabo, that they could not directly talk about, yes, I applied, or did you apply or not, then something is fundamentally wrong within the United Democratic Party. So I wouldn't go beyond that, because every other thing is, unless Dabo and Talib and the inner circle could tell us what exactly
But
is going on.
let us establish something before we move away from that topic, and that is the inherent right. And I said this in my article.
Yeah.
Talib has every right to apply for that position.
Exactly.
That position is not an inherent position that belongs to Mr. Dabo and Mr. Dabo alone. And Mr. Dabo himself have come out to dispel that notion that people should attack anybody else that decided to run against him. I feel that Talib running against Mr. Dabo shows, more than anything, it demonstrates his ability to trust and test the veracity of his acceptance amongst the leadership of the party, I should say, because again, we need to understand that the selection committee, who is going to select the flag bearership, it's like the electoral college in America.
But how long has this selection committee been constituted?
I don't know how long it's been constituted. What I know is this has been the normal selection process for.
Another thing that did not escape my mind is the words of one of the parliamentarians, quite very vocal in the National Assembly, the guy with the beards, and I think he's from somewhere in Kiang. Actually, for him, it's like Dabo is just someone that nobody needed to challenge. For him, it's like, who are they to sit and ask Dabo to tell them what exactly he wants to do and what he can do, if he's actually, selected as the flag bearer. That nobody should actually question that, or sit Dabo down and ask him questions like that. So for him, his thought is like Dabo should have been given that position automatically. This might be people's opinions, but in a democratic institution like the United Democratic Party, why would one condemn another simply because they applied for a position of a flag bearer that any member of the political party has a right to? So if you can condemn your own people for just applying for a position that the party leader applies, how about if he becomes president? Nobody would say anything. I think some of the utterances also speak to the greater Gambians to understand the context and, of course, the sensitivity of some of these, utterances that people make. I did not align myself with that utterances of this very dynamic and quite promising parliamentarian to think in that line. Because people contesting against Dabo speaks more about the United Democratic Party and its democratic processes, and of course its principles that are based on democracy and, of
yes,
course,
I understand.
diversity.
I understand, and I share your sentiments exactly. But it's reminding me of a conversation I just had with someone a few days ago, where I tried to explain the enigma surrounding the passing of former President Yahya Jammeh. Now, on one hand, to some people, to the families that lost their lives, that they have people who lost their lives during the reign of Jammeh, to people that claim they have been forcefully sent into exile, to people that claim they have loved ones that had disappeared. to people who claim they have been tortured, and to just take some of the people that gave testimonies at the TRRC. I'm not defending the credibility of those stories or lack of, I'm not getting into that. But I'm just saying that on one hand, there's nothing you can tell these people about Jammeh that would make them see Jammeh in a different light. As far as they're concerned, Jammeh is the devil. He's a demon. He never should have lived. He never should have crossed paths with them. You get that?
Yeah.
On the other hand, the magnanimity of Jammeh cannot be questioned or cannot be misconstrued by anyone to this set of people. To that old woman somewhere in a remote village that never had there was no reason whatsoever for that woman to even make that trip to Banjul or Serakunda. To that woman that never thought that her child would even travel to the urban areas and get an education, and was on a plane the next day going to Taiwan, going to Venezuela, going to China to become a doctor, to become an architect, to become an engineer. And next minute, that woman is put on a plane from that remote village and sent to Mecca to perform the Hajj and come back to receiving a bag of sugar, a bag of rice. How do you try to explain the atrocities of Jammeh to that woman up country? It is a clear, distinct line where one party cannot understand the other party. One person on one end of the spectrum does not understand the other end of the spectrum. It is a clearly distinctive and diverse and radically different output, experience, but it surrounds one person. So on one hand, the alleged atrocities of Jammeh cannot be, okay, you cannot color, there's no way you can change it. You can't give it a color. You can't make it look good. But to the other end, you cannot dispel, you cannot change the magnanimity of Jammeh to that person.
Yeah.
And this is what we're still seeing in Gambia, where you still have people that are ready to die. If Jammeh comes to Gambia today, they will die for him. That is the reality. There is the other set where if Jammeh comes to Gambia today, they would want to see his body cut into pieces. This is the reality, but it is one man we're talking about. So for that gentleman, to you and I, looking at it from an objective point of view, we don't understand why a political party, why one person would believe that that party should evolve, should surround against around Mr. Dabo. But to that man that saw this man and looking at Mr. Dabo from the angle where when things were tough for 22 years, when no one dared, where people were being coaxed, people were being begged to take on the mantle of leadership of the United Democratic Party, and they refused. That is what that man is seeing. When the executive of the UDP were going out, how many young people stood shoulder to shoulder with them? These were old men walking on the streets of Kairaba Avenue at a time when you and I knew exactly what was going on. And they stood shoulder to shoulder. So to that man, to that parliamentarian, I didn't see what he wrote, but maybe he's looking at it from that angle. To him, anyone running against Mr. Dabo is a betrayer. So you and I, being objective, analytical people or individuals, will see it differently. But that person also has that right to see it. And we have to be able to understand their viewpoint if we look at it from their angle. We don't know his experiences. You don't know whether his father stood shoulder to shoulder with Mr. Dabo. You don't know what his father went through. You don't know. So somebody like Olufemi Peters, having seen his father thrown in jail, his father developing health complications as a result of the sacrifices of standing shoulder to shoulder with the UDP. And when you talk to some of these people now, for them, it's not because they hate Talib. It's not because they dislike Talib. It's because they see it as a core betrayal for anybody to go against Mr. Dabo. Now, what the camp of Talib have a responsibility to do is to create civic awareness, to make people understand that the United Democratic Party is bigger than Mr. Dabo, to make people understand that the United Democratic Party, the legacy of Mr. Dabo, for it to live, it has to transcend beyond the person of Mr. Dabo. They need to understand. They need to be able to be convinced that going against Mr. Dabo is not betrayal. It is not disrespect. It is not disregard, but it is a raw ambition for the continuity of the party and the principles that the UDP stood for, the legacy that Mr. Dabo fought for, and the legacy that he was prepared to die for. Mr. Dabo is not immortal. Mr. Dabo will die. Mr. Dabo would outlive the United Democratic Party will outlive Mr. Dabo. And if Mr. Dabo is true to his words, it is not for the United Democratic Party to die with Mr. Dabo, but for the party to live on so that his legacy would become eternal. So that tomorrow, you and I, our generation, the kids that we're having, the next generation, will be able to someday sit together and say, yes, there was a man by the name of Mr. Dabo who stood up when the average Gambians could not stand up, who walked shoulder to shoulder with gallant men that were ready to sacrifice their lives. So rather than attack these people, rather than go after them in the disguise that they do not like Talib, is to find a common ground where people can sit together, the different factions that have been created, to make them understand that the objective is one. I'll let you take it on.
Thank you very much. I think that's quite a very, very marathon run there. And that makes a perfect analysis of how people see things. Like the Jammeh analogy. To somebody, Jammeh is just, next to every other thing. And to another person, that's a person who deserves no life for the next minute. And of course, you can see the people behind some of these politicians. That's just the mentality out there. But the common ground would be, no matter how we see some of these individuals or how we perceive them, we need to understand that as a political party, the common denominator here is to come to power. And coming to power would require all of you looking at things at the same wavelength. You might not agree with each and every person within the political party, but of course, vilifying each other will not also help the greater masses in actually supporting the United Democratic Party. The most important thing in it all together is to see that challenging, or not, I wouldn't even call it a challenge. Now, for other people contesting, within the party for the flag bearer position is strengthening the democratic principles within the political party. Because the people who are going to vote, like you analyzed, would look at it from the strengths and the weaknesses of these individuals and, of course, their contributions to this party. Everything and anything you would say about Dabo, there is almost nothing that you can say about the UDP without Hussein Dabo. A couple of days ago, I read a post from somebody, because then I was reading a lot of things also coming from the other camp directed at Dabo. And this person said, since 1996, when the military came to power, Dabo has consistently been running. Why were people not coming out to challenge him that they wanted the position to run? Were they using him as a sacrificial lamb against the military? That he was the bold man who stood thick and thin to ensure that he challenged the status quo at the time. Come 2016, everybody want to be. But of course, it's also everybody's right to want to be, irrespective of what time they come in. But time is of essence to other people, and to other people that is immaterial. Is about the longevity of the party, it's about continuity, it's about the younger ones who are coming up. All of these things make a lot of sense. There is no one size fit all. There cannot be any monocropping analysis. Every angle you look at would make sense. But the common denominator here is that it should not lead to fragmentation and, of course, ultimate division within a political party. There should be a common ground among all these folks to understand that if really the interest of this party and leading this nation is what is important to us, then our differences should not outshine our common good. You know, so we're taking too much on the United Democratic Party. A lot of other things did happen. I don't want us to really keep on that too long. But that's been very, phenomenal discussions around that. Probably people have some goods and some bads to take from there. But the next whole point would be we've seen, the National Assembly Select Committee that is looking into these assets. You did mention Jammeh here. We've seen how, the Janneh Commission was. We did have a lot of, reservations and sometimes, of course, optimism around them. Thus far, how do you gauge them?
Okay, well, first thing we need to look at when you look at the National Assembly Select Committee on the handling of the sale and disposal of the assets of former President Jammeh and his associates. I think that's the name, if I get it right. Now, I think it's a bit sad that we spent a lot of resources to go after the alleged resources that belong to the entire Gambian,
Yeah.
that was wasted. And then there is the allegation that those resources that were recovered were also wasted. And now we have decided as a government again to put resources to actually find out how those resources that were recovered that allegedly belong to the Gambian people were wasted. Do I make sense?
Certainly, of course.
So at the end of the day, and I have said this before, what is going to come out of this scrutiny over the disposal and sale of the assets of former President Jammeh? Now, what we are seeing is that the initiator of this committee to look into the affairs of the commission, seemingly going by the testimonies that we have seen before the committee, are part and parcel of the inaccurate disposal of the assets. And it makes you wonder now, who is policing the police and who is supervising the supervisor? So at the end of the day, would the select committee come up with recommendations such as cabinet was wrong and influenced the decision of the commission, that there were interference with the commission, when it is cabinet itself, of course, by virtue substantively of the president, that initiated that committee? And remember, the recommendations of that committee are going back to the president, who would sit with that recommendation in cabinet to make a decision on the acceptance or rejections of the findings of that committee.
Yeah.
So to me, I don't like to spoil things, but I think it's another benefit for the people that are in this committee to enjoy the allowances and packs that come with supervising and trying to look into the very delicate intricacies of the Janneh Commission. Because now we can tell that it was not only the Janneh Commission, but we had the Janneh Commission, we had the Ministry of Justice interfering, the Batambedus and stuff. We are being told that we had State House interfering in the commission's activities. So at the end of the day, for me, I think it is a wasted exercise, and I don't think anything will come out of it.
It only speaks to one thing: the government is undeniably corrupt, and of course was basically masterminding all these malpractices that were happening. And this same report will go to the same government to preside over. So the whole point is Gambia probably needs a better government. It's difficult to say, but that's the fact. Because
And
the leadership of the
I
regime,
wouldn't be surprised if at some point the committee will ask for an extension of their mandate because they would not have concluded into looking into their affairs. Because again, this seems to become the norm now, where all commissions, all committees set up by government would extend their life, would extend their time, under the disguise that they had not finished their work on time. But
again,
whilst this is being done, taxpayers' monies are being wasted. Now, what we should ask ourselves, really, as a people, is what came out of the millions that were spent in the Constitutional Review Commission?
zero.
What came out of the millions that were spent in the TRRC?
Zero.
What came out in the millions that were spent in the Janet Commission?
Extensive, extensive theft and corruption.
What will come out of the Local Government Commission? We don't know. What will come out of this committee and so many other committees and commissions, the Faraba ones and stuff? What came out of it?
Nothing.
But whilst all this is going on, it is the taxpayers that are paying and funding the search for wasted resources that they should have enjoyed. It's so ironical.
Yeah, yeah, it's sad. It's so sad that you cannot imagine that post 2016, you will have a government that will establish commissions and later establish committees to investigate commissions. Commissions that were to establish truth and, of course, recover our resources, went on to loot our resources. And it's not just the commission, but, of course, the government machinery altogether were the ones masterminding the theft and corruption. And, of course, stealing state resources that they should be kind of protecting and, of course, utilizing for the greater good of the country. But there is one point that I always find very interesting. The president had said that they knew when all those lands were recovered that government cannot use all those lands, and that is why they decided to sell some of them. Did the president think that Gambia is going to end after his regime? Does the president not know that Gambia will exist for the next 100 years and will continue to need land as the state? That a lot of land is not in the name of the state if you know the land tenure system of the Gambia. Was there any necessity to sell land that belongs to the state when you know our population increment is so exponential and of course government desire or need for land is increasing day by day, but you went on to sell some of those lands when you could keep them for government utilization or keep it for further governments that might or later governments that might come in to utilize for the greater good of the Gambia. Now we've seen government trying to reserve protected areas in our country for development purposes when they deliberately decided to sell some of Jammeh's assets. But to whom did they sell them to? Of course, you've seen an accountant in the commission whose name is Ahmadu Mamadou, the same person. Boy man su ma la waxee am na lu ma doy waar loo xam ne loolu daf ma yéeme musuma koo dégga fen if not in the Gambia, that somebody will be appointed into a commission and he will have 5 names in the same commission in a way to steal from the country that entrusted you with a responsibility. And these people are out there. And of course, the presidency will tell us, oh, we did not know, but we have seen the secretary to the cabinet coming there trying to pray dilly-dally. That speaks to only one thing. Barrow's government is one of the most corrupt government that the Gambia has ever seen. And the government, there is no way that it can actually put itself out of this case. And there is nothing we can talk about because all of these things revolve around people who are giving the leadership role to lead our country. So, squarely, is the government that is incapable, that is corrupt, that is exposed beyond reasonable doubt that the government, of course, did us bad. And whatever would come out of this commission, what will they do? Will they tell the president to resign? No, they will take their report and take it to the president for him to do what? When the presidency is complicit in it. What is he going to do? But anyway, that is not something we should waste a lot of time on because we are running out of time. Let's just take the next 20 minutes and just look at. We've seen Gala and the police, Public Order Act. This is something you keep talking to us about. Here, we do not want to just look at the act, but the manner of the execution of the act that I paid a lot of attention to. We respect the law exists, but what is it that need to be put in place? Because it is important that we understand how this law needs to be implemented. And if it is just left to the discretions of persons, then that is something fundamentally flawed that I think needs to be regulated or needs to be looked into. Because one cannot just tell another person, no, you are illegally standing here, and another person turns and says, no, I am lawful, I'm legal, arrest him. Probably time frame, in my view, should be allocated to say, hello, disperse in 5 minutes. If you did not, I will arrest you. That's a warning. Clear cut. But whereas you come and say, you should disperse, you are illegal here, I am legal, arrest him. Of course, somebody can say, yes, he has the authority to do so. But logically, and of course, humanely, I think it could be executed differently. But of course, I want to get your perspective and views in the execution that was
But let
done
me
as
hear, let
SAR
me hear your
before.
perspective first.
No, my whole point is I accept that this is the law. And if it says that, you should not, gather whatever, and of course there is a way to go about it, I accept all of that. That's the law. You can do this, and that is the Public Order Act. So long it exists in our laws, of course, it is the law. And the law is the law. Again, does this law give the police the ultimate right to come immediately and say, leave here this minute, the next second you did not, kind of, let's say you did not disappear, then you will be arrested? Because between SAR and those folks, it did not take a minute before he says arrest them. Because as soon as SAR puts his voice down, as in you are illegal, somebody said no, we are legal, it's arrest him. That is where I have a problem. Is the attitude of the police that came there to actually execute this arrest of these young people. Again, not just his attitude towards the young people, but his attitude towards his own colleagues, because there was a police group that was there prior to him coming. And when you come, in my own, that is not legal. That's just common sense. You get to a point and you meet your colleagues there, and probably their mode of execution is unsatisfactory to you. I would believe that you should call them to side and tell them, you know what, you have to execute the others in this way. This is what it is, and we are not compromising. And of course, bring them back to the operational force to make sure that they do whatever they got to do. But in the midst of a civilian population, you look at your men and start addressing them in a very disgusting way, kind of telling them, if you don't know what you're doing here, I'll kick you out here, and of course I will execute my orders. You're disrespecting your subordinates in the midst of a civilian population, and you still expect those civilians to respect the people you are disrespecting in their presence? I think there was, of course, it might be command, or that is the way the police operate, but the relationship between the police within themselves and, of course, in the midst of civilian population should be different from the police and the police within a police community. That's what I actually have on that. But of course, in terms of the application of the law, it's not everybody that the law was justly applied on. If those people were met there and they were told that they should not be here, if you give them 5 minutes for them to leave and they did not leave, probably you can conduct an arrest. But again, there is another group that said they were walking on foot to go to the National Assembly. When has it become a crime to walk on foot to go to the National Assembly? They did not commit any crime, in my view, because they did not obstruct traffic. They did not talk to anybody on the road. They were just walking, just like I can board a vehicle and go to Banjul.
Can I ask you a question? Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
You've said something quite interesting, and I've seen some of this on your post. What is the definition of a crime?
I wouldn't know what exactly the crime is. If you actually cause something that is against the law, that's probably the crime.
Okay.
When does something
become against the law?
When it is not in conformity with the law.
Okay. So now in America, where you live, in America, where you live,
yeah,
you go down. You live in New York.
Yeah.
You go down First Avenue. Okay.
Yeah.
And you're walking down the street. You haven't done anything. And a police officer stops you.
Yeah.
And says to you, Dr. Omar, I want to search you.
Yeah.
I want to do a strip search.
Yeah.
Would you tell him, no, you cannot strip search me because I have not broken the law?
He has a right to search me.
No, that's not my question. You have
I
answered the
would, I would,
question.
I wouldn't say that because the police can search anybody. That is actually part of public law in this country. That
In every country, it's not that
of
country
course, of
alone.
course. So we are talking about
So
searching. Okay,
no, no,
right?
hang
They
on,
can
no,
search.
no, we're not talking about searching. Allow me to land,
Okay,
and I
go
will.
ahead. I did answer your question. Yes, they can
Yes,
search me.
so they can, right?
Yes.
You
Yes.
you might not have broken any law, right?
No.
Okay, so the police, and you're walking down that street, and the police say to you that, Mr. Omar, I'm sorry, but you have to turn around and go north. You're not allowed to go through this path. Will you
They,
tell? Will you tell? No, I've okay. For example,
uh-huh.
let me give a classic example. When UNGA is holding, right?
Yeah.
And you know Manhattan very well. You know the UN buildings.
Of course.
And UNGA is holding. You have maybe 100 and something heads of states in
Yeah.
the city and stuff.
Yeah.
And you're walking down, and the police officer said to you, "I'm sorry, you can't go that way. Turn around. There's a detour."
Why? There is a reason, right?
No, you see. Okay, now these are
Of
two
course.
intellectuals arguing. Listen. Forget about the reason, because the truth is you do not know the reason at that point.
So I will not go because I will have to ask for the reason to know
No,
why I am asked
but
not to
Omar,
go.
but you
I
know,
will not just turn around and start going
but
away.
you and I, but you and
Uh-huh.
I know, you and I know that that is not factual, because the police, mandated by law, does not have to give you a reason. This
Listen,
is well known anywhere in the world.
the
They
police
do not have to
the
give you
police
a
have no
reason.
right whatsoever without telling me what exactly it is to tell me no, you cannot go here. Based on what?
No, just based on nothingness, just like the police stopped you initially. That's why I asked you that question, to strip search you, and you would not tell them to tell you a reason why they must
No,
strip search you.
they will
And no,
search
hang
you
on,
probably that there is a reasonable
allow
suspicion
me,
on you.
allow me to finish.
Searching and
Allow,
passing by a road is different.
allow me to finish. It is
Okay, go
not
ahead.
different. It is
Go
not
ahead.
different.
Go ahead.
The point I'm trying to make is, police powers, they have wide discretion.
Yeah.
And that is why people would sue after the fact for unlawful arrest. Because it is always after the fact that it is determined whether the arrest was lawful or unlawful.
Yeah.
Okay? That is why you would never see a person say, like we have seen some activists are saying, that their arrest was unlawful. The arrest has to be determined by way of facts and looking at the law to arrive at a conclusion or a determinant that it was unlawful.
No,
Now, the point I'm trying to make is, the way the Public Order Act works, and the way it works in every other country that I know that I've lived at, and I've tried to research and just to look at, experiences and things like that, right? So I'll give you a classic example. A few days ago, the Home Office won an appeal at the Court of Appeal, where at first they had lost the case, where the courts had determined that this particular hotel in this particular town cannot continue to host migrants, asylum seekers. But the Home Office appealed to say that if that law was to be applied, it would become very messy, because where would you take these people? And it means that if that happens, if they succeed, every other city will start going to court to say that they should they should not accept asylum seekers in their respective cities.
Okay.
Now, after that, 3 individuals decided that they were going to go on a protest. Now, remember, in England, you don't need to have a permit to go on a protest. They were all arrested. And what I did, I took a picture of the news on BBC to send to you, but then I forgot. So I'll send it to you right after. They were,
let me bring you this context.
but
Where I
let
know
me
you got.
finish. Let me finish so I can
Okay.
land,
Go ahead.
okay? So now, the Public Order Act. So I tried to explain. When these men and women assembled in front of Pura, they were not committing a crime. They had not used a loudspeaker. They were not in a procession. They had a lawful assembly. Okay?
But do you know that procession is what is mentioned in the charge sheet?
No, listen, let me finish.
Yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
They had a lawful assembly. Now, where that assembly becomes unlawful, and I try to explain this, is after you have a dispersal order.
Yeah.
Now, you and I can sit down here and have a debate from now till Timbuktu to find out whether there were justifications for the dispersal order. But the fact remains that when the police gave a dispersal order and they did not disperse, the assembly that was lawful automatically became unlawful. And that is the law. So if a police in England, so for example, they would come to your house, you're having a party, a get together, maybe one neighbor had called to say you're making noise or blah, blah, blah. The police just come, and you know the same thing in America. They will just come and tell you, hey, turn that music off and go. Disperse. Now, so remember, whilst you were doing everything you were doing, you have not committed a crime. You guys were partying, you guys were chilling. The police come and tell you, turn the music off and disperse. It becomes a crime after the dispersal order was given and that music is still turned on and people refuse to disperse. That is when arrest will be made. And it is the same thing that happened in the Gambia. Now, the distinction is where you will say, okay, one, we were causing noise. What were they doing? But again, that is when you would have to look at the law and the powers and the authority of the police. Now, when you look at the law and where the debate will come into play is to why or what necessitated the dispersal order.
Okay.
Now, what necessitated the dispersal order is what I have advocated, that blanket right needs to be amended, but not automatically repealing the Public Order Act.
I agree with you.
So where that right came, where the police derived that authority to just come and give a dispersal order, is where the law mentions the opinion of the IGP. So opinion does not have to be fact. Remember.
I got that. Now the application of it, should it be just disperse, arrest, like it happened?
No. But we already agreed, you and I already agreed that the manner of arrest, the rationale for arrest are things we can look at substantively.
Right.
But what we are looking at now is where that assembly became unlawful. And that is after the dispersal order.
I agree with you on that. Now, beyond the assembly, there is this other group that was working. I was trying to bring you an example over here.
I'll tell you what I understand from that based on I'm not holding brief for the police.
Of course, I know you would not.
Okay.
Look, you don't need to.
So now,
you got to speak your mind frankly.
When they were, and the records are there for you to see, they said, our men, our boys, our comrades have been arrested. We are going on a protest and we are marching to Banjul, and we will not leave until the boys are freed. Omar, let's be very careful here.
Yes.
Okay? We will not leave until the boys are freed. Automatically, they have invoked the provisions of the Public Order Act by mere mentioning of protest. And this is what I said to one of the gala members when I spoke to him, just an informal conversation. You could have said that you were going to hand in a petition to Pura, but where you said you were going on a protest, because that was the advert, we're embarking on a protest on this day and day. The Public Order Act, the Constitution, already spells protest. So where any human being says they're going on a protest, you have automatically invoked the provisions of that act. If it's just like I say that I'm coming to you, I'm going to assault Omar. The law prohibits assault. The law says that if you're going on a protest, you must have a permit. And you say you're going on a protest. It is self-inflicting wound.
That's Ghana.
Now,
I'm talking about the group that was walking to Banjul. Now, you
and that's
said
what
they
I'm
said they were
saying.
going
The
to the
group,
National Assembly.
yes, and they said
Mm-hmm.
they were not. And now, if you look at the law as well, like I said, I'm not holding brief.
No, I understand that, you know.
But rather than try to be like the point, what we should be discussing as a country and what we should be discussing as a people
Mm-hmm.
is how we can bring the Public Order Act to conformity of international standards, where rights, human rights, the right to free speech, the right to protest will be upheld, but be regulated in a way and manner that it would not lead to lawlessness, to anarchy, and to chaos. Now,
So,
the nitty-gritties of why they did this, why they dispersed, that is something that's being tested in the courts right now.
yeah.
But what you and I should be focused on is to look at the Public Order Act in itself. So before I made that post that I did in the car in total darkness, people, the average Gambian public, only knew about Section 25 of the Constitution. But nobody was talking about Section 24, which envisaged the Public Order Act, envisaged some sort of regulation on these rights that are not blanket open rights.
That you did make very clear. But let me make this point. Now, like you said, they said they were going to Banjul, whatever language they did use, which I'm not sure I heard that. But to say that people walking on the street and you automatically just arrest them on the street simply because they said they are going to Banjul, I have a problem with that. If it is legal, let it be legal in whatever public order, whatever. That tells you that the police can walk on the street and just look at you and arrest you.
No,
But
but I don't agree. I think that is being very unfair to the police. I mean, I'm
no, I
always
can't.
fighting. No, no, I'm always fighting with the police.
What
But
is fair to the police in what should be
but that
fair
is
to the
not what
police in
happened
this case?
because that was not what happened. That is not
What really
true.
happened?
No, you said they were walking to Banjul and they picked them up on the road whilst they were walking and
That's
arrested them.
of course that's what happened. What happened? Didn't you see the videos?
No,
Oh man, that's exactly what happened. These people obstruct no traffic. They were walking on the side. Of course, if they did make those pronouncements that they are going there and they will not go until they actually release these people, let the police go and wait for them to gather there and arrest them. But
no,
while they
but that is where you're wrong. That is where you're wrong. If I was the Inspector General of Police,
uh-huh.
remember the mandate of the police is the protection of lives and property. But a core mandate of the police is the prevention of crime. It
And
is the prevent. No, no, hang on, Omar.
who are
I
the
was
criminals?
today. I vehemently disagree with you.
Who are the criminals here?
No, no, listen.
The criminals are the people that are
No,
increasing tariffs on the Gambians,
no, no,
looting
no, no,
people
no, no,
and
no,
then
no. Wait,
stealing
wait, wait,
things
wait,
in
wait,
our
wait.
in our
No, no,
country. And then
no,
they
no.
want to cage
You see,
everybody
no,
and
no,
nobody can
no,
speak in our
no,
country.
no.
And
Listen,
that is
listen.
what they call democracy. And then
No,
is that
but Omar,
existing all over the world? That
but
is not what exists all over the
no, but
world.
Dr. Omar,
What is
listen.
happening in the Gambia is blatant disregard for
But Dr.
human rights
Omar,
and of course abuse of
you
its
are
youth.
right. You are absolutely right. But where you are failing is the fact that one wrong does not make a right. Two wrongs does not amount to a right. Now, I agree with what you are saying, but that is one step far removed. We will get to that part. But I am saying if I was the Inspector General of Police and these boys have already been arrested, And then I have a group of young people who say they are walking towards a particular government institution, a public institution, and making a bold statement that they will not leave until these boys were released, who were now under police custody, lawful police custody. In order to prevent crime, which is a mandate of the police, I will arrest them. I'm telling you what I will do.
You will arrest them and go brutalize them in your police headquarters?
No, I never say. I'm not stupid. I'm not
No,
a
I know
bum.
you
I'm not
wouldn't
an
say that.
animal.
I'm not saying you said that. I'm just
Yeah.
telling you the circumstances
No,
surrounding their
no.
arrest.
You see.
The
Listen.
police cannot be
What
right for
I'm talking about.
brutalizing
You
people.
see. The thing is, if
I
we need
understand
to,
it.
no, if
There
we
are two
need to
things.
make, listen. Hang on. If we need to make sense of the conversation for the purpose of the general audience, we need to take one step at a time. So you see, when you spoke about the corruption of government and all that, you saw me. I kept quiet because there was nothing I could say by way of defense. Now, if we look at the Public Order Act substantively to educate the masses, for them to understand the law, then when you come into the nitty-gritties of how they were brutalized, what they did to them and did not do, that's an other step, which I will allow you to dwell on. Like, for example, if you saw my Facebook, I questioned the rationality of cutting off the dreadlocks of a remand prisoner who was neither convicted or found guilty by a court of competent jurisdiction. But the fact is, I am saying that you need to understand something, and this is what Gambians need to understand, that sometimes you arrest a person not because they have committed a crime. You arrest a person to prevent the commission of a crime. You arrest a person to protect them. And even in Gambia, people still don't understand that some of the reasons I see people say that, oh, but this is a bailable offense and the person has to be bailed. But that is not factual, because bail is left to the discretion of the court. And sometimes bail is denied, not because you have not met the conditions or requirements to fulfill bail, but for your own safety and protection.
That's true.
Now,
That
for
exists
example,
in
let me
some
give you a classic
circumstances.
example. The
Uh-huh.
case of that lady, Kumba Sinyan.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay? Now, imagine if this girl was released on bail right at that moment when tempers were flying, energy was high, and you have this guy, this young man who was murdered or allegedly murdered, and then you release this young guy into the unsuspecting public. So sometimes in law, the denial of bail is not necessarily because they have not met the bail conditions, or not merely because you want to keep them in detention, but sometimes it is to prevent crime and to protect the very person who is asking for bail.
Now, can we now mirror it down to or probably keep it within the parameters of this boy's arrest? Was there any necessity to keep them in mile 2? Is that for their own safety, or was
No,
that the police
no.
regime?
Don't conflate the issues. I gave an example. I'm not even gotten to the
Of
part of the
course,
mile
I
2.
understand. I
So
understand that.
I was giving an example as to the reason and the rationale for the arrest. Because you had a situation where tempers were all over the place. This was the arrest of these guys was broadcasted live on social media. You had faction groups coming up and saying, we will not go until these boys leave. Omar, as an IGP, I'm telling you what I will do. And I'm unapologetic about it. I will not allow for 1 million Gambian youths to come and congregate at the National Assembly when I wouldn't be able to manage or disperse that crowd. I will arrest everybody on sight, not because I necessarily want to arrest them, but because I'm trying to contain the situation. And that is what any lawful police force would have done. So I am not agreeing. I'm not agreeing with the police or saying blah, 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 and blah. But I'm just saying, in that regard, they were preventing the escalation of what otherwise. So, for example, let's look at the imam that was escorted to Banjul. If they had stopped that crowd when it was 1, 2, or 3 making that trip, it would not have gotten Imagine if the police wanted to disperse hundreds of thousands of people. It wouldn't work. So in policing, the management of crowd is something that they should have subject expertise on. So I'm saying that is my point of view, but I'm not trying to justify
No,
the
no,
actions.
no. I
So
understand. You are
yeah,
giving us the legal perspective. Let me give you the part of an activist, and that's basically what would matter to me to a great deal here. The whole
okay.
point is I agree the police can arrest any person who does wrong. How many wrongs are being committed in this country that the police are investigating and they are coming out with nothing, and the police are stamping their feet on facts that exist in that country? That is not for you, but of course I'm telling about the institutions that exist in our country that pretend to be serving the people when in reality they are serving the interests of the regime. We have seen the police come out and blatantly lie to the people about the death of two of their men. We have seen the police recently vilifying one of its staff simply for giving out his opinion. These institutions that should be protecting its own people are out and about vilifying its own people so that institution can kill and still come back and lie about its own stuff. Again, it's the police that will arrest these young people. They should have protected them, but instead they were brutalizing them, putting them in cells and putting them on floors and taking photos of them, caricaturing them. That is the police we have in the Gambia. Very incompetent folks who will come out there, insult their own men, insult every young person, castigate them, and of course insult them about their backgrounds and how weak their backgrounds are, when you should be arresting to protect and of course to ensure that there is that public order respected in society. But instead you use gas on people who are lying on the floor just to inflict pain on them, that you can actually throw gas on a little baby less than 3 months old, that the police could actually go out there and of course be throwing gas on even beggars in the streets in our country, when they could basically just arrest a couple of people to de-escalate the situation. But that is the police we have, that of course people can come and come with a whole crowd because they are conveying somebody to go and answer to the police, but other people who probably lawfully went to a court of law to actually witness a particular court sitting, you are busy throwing gas on them to a point that they had to throw stones back at the police. But it is the same police who cannot even apologize for throwing gas on a little baby, a toddler. But that is the country where over 70 children were killed because of government malpractices, corruption, and ineptitude. But this is the country where government will sell a vehicle for $5,000, but they will never allow anybody to talk about it because young people can be arrested for accounting that same regime. It is the same government that will institute commissions, and people in those commissions will be named Ahmad, Ahmadu, Ahmadu Bamba, whatever, just to loot state resources, but no person should say anything about it. If the police are serious about investigating crime, corruption, and malpractices in government, many things were brought to their table, but they did nothing about it. When it is the young people, then they talk about the Public Order Act. It is a way to suppress the citizenry, just like the former regime did, because we have the belief that the former regime was suppressing the Gambian people, was not allowing people to air out, their opinions, was not allowing people to show their dissatisfaction, and that is the repeat we are seeing. Of course, most of these young people are not violent. All they have is just placards to show, or with writings. These are not people who have guns. These are not people who have stones. These are not people who have arms. But all they have is their voices and, of course, their placards. You can easily arrest them in the nicest way. We've seen the same police who are arresting these folks, sending punches on them, of course, hitting them, brutalizing them while on camera, without any regard, without any remorse, without any professional ethics within them. Of course, those are things that we cannot be blinded to. Of course, the laws exist, but the laws in their application would have to be with responsibility. An irresponsible police institution is not one that Gambia deserves in this age and time. And this is what we have seen in our country. We have seen police brutality increasing day by day because they want to suppress the people from talking about the existential threat of corruption that exists in our country. That is leading to the death of unimaginable numbers of people, including children that die, and up to date, nothing is done about that in our courts. But that is, of course, a case before the court, but why is it not giving the maximum attention and, of course, action that it requires? But it tells a lot about the government and what it intends to do. To cramp on people who come out to speak to the government, to tell the facts to the government, for the government to do right. If the government is willing to do right, they will, of course, begin it now. And that is why they realize that the popular, disregard for this regime is actually something that the youth are actually championing to make sure that there is effective and efficient accountability on the government. But the government that actually puts up, a minimum price bound for its citizen, that is the government that is expected to actually make sure that there is internet affordability for its citizenry. I would actually regard that as another Jammeh tactic of suppressing the internet accessibility, that you and I can be speaking here, that a lot more Gambians will not listen, because what we are saying is very important to their plight, and of course it gives them the understanding of what they need to know about in the law, and of course not to break the law. But of course they want to make that internet so expensive that ordinary Gambians will not actually be able to have it. Why does our government that cares about the plight of its people, that should make sure that there is affordability in every aspect for human dignity in the Gambia, that every other person one way or another is able to have a decent living, is the one that is hiking up the prices against its citizens, yet suppressing them and not allowing them to speak? And where somebody comes out with a little placard to say we are dissatisfied with this, they arrest them on the basis of a public order act. But they are criminals within themselves. The people who kill the cops and of course lied about them are never arrested. The people that loot our state resources are never arrested. People who take millions and millions of Gambia's taxpayers' money are not arrested. People who take our lands and share them among themselves are not arrested. People who will take state money fraudulently are not arrested. But young people who take nothing and all they have is their voices and their placards to say, hello, we want better services. We want good service delivery in our country. We want good governance. We want accountability. We want transparency. And we want honesty in the execution of government functions in our country, are those that are arrested. But they are not just arrested, but brutalized. That I have a fundamental problem with. But everything about the law, you've made significant consciousness and you've developed extensively on that, and nobody can dispute that. But of course, the circumstances surrounding it and the people that are actually doing that arrest, are they really doing the right thing? Is the police in the Gambia police being policed? But who is policing the police? Because the attitude of the police, even on their Facebook page, is one of the most disgusting police force I've ever seen in a country. Where an individual working in the police force would have said something and then you want to reprimand them instead of following your codes and ethics. All that they did was to come to Facebook attacking its own men. But it is the same police that came out and told us all kind of lies that nobody can imagine in this country. Who is policing the police in the Gambia? Where are all the drug lords? Nobody is talking about that. Drug is in and out of that country like no man's business. But we have a police force that only cares about young people who will come out and say, hello, we care about the way our country is being governed. We care about the plight of this country. We care about the future of this country, and we want you to do better. We want you to do right, and we are accounting you for your actions. Then and there, they are committing crimes. But of course, the real criminals are in government, doing whatever they want to do. And they can name themselves today, Mod Lamin, tomorrow Al-Alamin, tomorrow Muhammad Lamin, and all that sort of nonsenses that are happening in the country. But the legality of everything that you said is irrefutable, is undeniable, and of course, nobody can question that. But then and there, I can question the integrity of the institutions that are implementing this, that they are not doing the right thing. They are not doing the right thing to the country, even though nobody can say the arrest is illegal, but brutalizing people can never be legal. Punching people simply because they have a placard and you run after them and then you grab them, you start beating them, there is no justification for that. And they cannot be using some of these so-called judges and magistrates and police prosecutors to suppress and of course humiliate and of course subjugate our people. No, the Gambia has passed that stage. And that is what I wanted to add to that. But everything legally you put, you are educating and raising awareness in that country. Never doubt it and never even think that people would see that you are taking sides. No. And this way, it is important that people are educated and they know their rights and responsibilities. Because a lot of you see, you are talking about section. Look, I don't even know some of these sections you're talking about. If I tell you some of the things about law here and there, I learn and I know from you. What is wrong to say I am learning from you? Because I don't know them. Before I put myself in trouble, it's important that those awareness are raised to the young people of our country. But it's the same government that want to suppress the internet by raising tariffs that those young people cannot listen to you and I, and that you and I should have a problem with. But in terms of implementing the law, Nobody should jump and say this law is good, this other one is bad, simply because it affects you today and tomorrow you like it. Oh, I like section, whatever 15 or 25, but you don't look at 24. It's important that all of those things are put into perspective for greater community education, that our people understand. Because when there is understanding, there is a way we go about things than when you do not know, because ignorance cannot be an excuse in modern day Gambia. And that includes even the police and their actions, because we cannot, in our way, try to hold the police accountable when we cannot hold the young people accountable. Accountability should cut across spectrums. Everybody should be put in that accountability box, and of course, you are looked at, and the truth be told to you. And no young person have a free right to do whatever in a country. No, there is law and order in that country. But of course, that law and order is where even government officials are under. And they cannot continue to be stealing public resources, and government gives a blind eye to it, or the police stamp their feet on it, or their leadership are culpable and of course complicit in some of those criminal doings in our country. The police must be police, just like the young people would be arrested for breaking the law. But of course, the bigger criminals deserve the same thing. You go to mile 2, the conditions are disgusting, but the people you meet there is the young people. It's the same young people that would vote for some of these politicians. But when you do wrong, of course, you got to be punished for it. But let it be done within the confines of the law. And you cannot just arrest somebody and start punching them. That is wrong. Like you said, you cannot just get somebody who is not convicted there to start cutting their dreadlocks. So this analysis we do, we are not siding with anyone and we are not against anyone, but we will speak the truth about our country for the greater good of the nation. And that is the common denominator here. I think we took quite a lot of time, so we need to wrap it up now. It's past midnight in Gambia, so we got to be fair to our people. We're coming back here next Thursday. There's a lot of things to be said, but this is the beauty of this conversation. It's never this is right or this is wrong. That convergence at the end of the day creates that greater wisdom to our people. We are not against info or whatever. At the end of the day, is for you to learn. Take the little truth that you see from what we are saying. Whatever you think is garbage, put it in your bin. At the end of the
Discarded.
day, we are here for the greater masses. And our population cannot continue to be neglected. And of course, we need to continue to talk to our people. And people got to really understand that. Unapologetically, we don't even need to tell anybody we are in for you or we are against you. No, we are speaking the facts as they are. I might not always agree with you, but I know what you are saying is the fact. I will use my other angle to kind of justify what I think from an activist point of view. But at the end of the day, the law is the law. But that law includes the police and its leadership. And no way will the law tell you go and punch people. And arrest should not be done in, of course, if somebody is resisting arrest, that's also another way of going about things. But somebody who just is right there, yes, take me wherever you want. You start punching them because you're angry, insulting them because you're angry. But there is something also to commend. When you look at the police in that blue uniform, they're very different from the police in the black uniform. The police in the blue uniform were so professional that they stood and they were more or less leaving these protesters, trying to prevent them from coming close to that area. But these other people with SAR came violently and, of course, arrogantly to get these boys in a manner that was quite very disorderly. But the police too, we cannot continue to vilify them because there are still good people, commendable people in their line of duty who does their best to the best interest of this country. We've seen some of them smiling even, at the face of insults. They're still smiling at these young people. They put in maximum restraint and, of course, control themselves. But of course, young people also got to understand that we can put up our message, our information, our dissatisfaction without being excessively disorderly and, of course, arrogant towards people who did us no wrong. The police and us are all victims. If you buy data at an expensive rate, maybe police beside you more like a sona. So until we put some of those things at the back of our minds, we will understand that it's our Gambia, it's our collective responsibility to put that country in shape. But it must be done truthfully and honestly. And that will not be that people shy away from telling the truth because they think some faction of society would like or dislike. No. Unless maybe sometimes I'm just looking that way, but that's not Melville for you. He will tell you as it is. At the end of the day, man, we will go and do whatever we got to do. But that's what I want to add to that, We can just wrap this up and then probably wait for Thursday and get on from there.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, I can't fault you. I think that's a proper balanced perspective. I mean, I just looked at the law, and for me, what I am against, and I think my position has been made pretty much clear in all my writings and in all my submissions since this issue with the boys and the arrest and the Gala movement, is that the law is the law until it is set aside.
Yeah.
And as a country, if we are speaking on the rule of law and we are claiming that we are fighting for democratic ideals, democratic institutions, we need to understand that democracy is premised on an enlightened nation. The
Yeah.
law is the law until it is set aside by a competent authority. And we must, in our advocacy, walk within the parameters of the law.
Yeah.
And what I have been advocating for is the misconception and misinformation that was being fed to these boys to
Yeah.
make them believe that the Public Order Act is not law, to make them believe that the Public Order Act is inconsistent with Section 25 of the 1997 Constitution, but giving a blind eye to the provisions of Section 24 of the Constitution that necessitated the Public Order Act for coming into existence. And so what I had tried to do is to draw a balance where they would know that, yes, the right to protest is sacrosanct, but they would understand that it has to be regulated, because not everybody who is part of or who would join the Gala in their movement, in their activities, would have the same spirit and objective of Gala. And the police is there to ensure that lives and properties, crime is prevented and it is secured. This is their foremost mandate. Now, how they go about this, the application and understanding of the Public Order Act, I believe that even they, the police, do not have a full grasp of it. And where I think we need to come up with some sort of advocacy is to advocate for the amendment of the Public Order Act so that the Inspector General of Police does not have that singular authority over how to determine or the sole determinant of who should protest and who should not protest, and having that blanket authority whereby there are no stringent guidelines that would be followed. So, for example, if the law had specified that you cannot grant a permit if so and so, or da 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 and da, or da da and da. However, if somebody has fulfilled all these criteria, then it would be that the law has provided that the Inspector General of Police would not have the leeway to be able to circumvent that law, and that permit would be granted. So for me, it's like going to look for a voter's card. Now, the law says for you to get a voter's card, you must have a national identity document. You must either have a Gambian birth certificate, or I think you must have the attestation of an alcalo. Now, where you go to get a voter's ID card or voter's card, you've got, I'm just assuming, I'm not too sure that is what the law, but I'm just paraphrasing.
I got it.
But let's say that is what it is. I can't remember what the requirements are, but let's say you need to have a Gambian ID, you need to have a birth certificate, and you need to have a voter's an alcalo's attestation. Now, where you go to get a voter's card and you have all these three, there is no authority that can deny you the issuance of that. It is something similar that we need to incorporate into the Public Order Act, where criteria are fulfilled. Then the police's hands are tied in a refusal of a permit to protest.
Yep.
But it has to be regulated. And I do not believe sometimes when there are comparisons made with other progressive jurisdiction, you can't compare where America is in terms of rights to where Gambia is. We don't even have proper internet. We don't even have proper buses. We don't even have proper electricity. We don't even have proper clean drinking water. But you want to equate our fight for rights with that of the Americans. We have not even gotten to the time of Rosa Parks when we were sitting down the bus and refusing to sit down.
Yeah.
It's a stage, it's a process. We need to evolve as a country. We cannot bite more than we can chew. And whilst the activities and the objectives of Gala are very commendable, they need to also understand and refuse for them to be used as a political tool. And what I have seen is that people coming behind them that do not necessarily share in their objectives, but hiding behind the clout of Gala to also propagate their own ideologies and their own objectives.
Well, you know, I
And
said
we can
something.
see through this.
You know, even America that we're talking about, you know, we can say that America is an advanced democracy. Well, you see, even in my estate complex, we just buy a water body, which is often a park, like it's a park, and people come there every weekend. Now, before you get into our, the main gate of our estate, the police would actually mount a big checkpoint there in the weekend, and they don't allow any vehicle to pass through. Every vehicle could say we have a right to pass to get to the package
Exactly.
here. But for security reasons, they make sure that no vehicle passes by Friday around 3 p.m. You'll find that they actually blocked everywhere. For you to pass to actually get to your place, you need to show an ID that you live in this estate complex. Otherwise, your vehicle is not allowed there. So
And
even in these
lastly,
advanced whatevers, and that is just for security reason, because we know, 9/11 and all other things did happen over here, because there is always a congregation of a lot of people there in the park. They are very careful what kind of people are coming in. And of course, they allow no vehicle to go there. But people could say, you know what? It's a public area. I have a right to come with my vehicle. So some of these things we need to understand that the
and
application
lastly,
of the law.
lastly, before we go, is just to say that, and just to reiterate the fact that fighting for a cause is not always through protest. There are other means. It is not, it is not sustainable. It is not sustainable, and no government machinery will accept where you want to go out and protest for every single thing.
Let the government do right. That's very true. I agree with you.
There has to be a point where other means would have to be advanced. There's going to be dialogue. We will not, because in a way, in the fighting of the causes, you cannot also hold a country to ransom.
It's true.
You cannot hold a country to ransom.
That's true.
So there has to be a strategic and fine line in how the movement can hold the government accountable, but yet still be able to do so within the confines of the law.
And keep society moving and not stagnating the society. Because I remember at the other time that they had to block the roads. Imagine how many people have been affected by the road blockage. Imagine sick people that might be affected by that. But that also goes to tell about malgovernance and the impact it could have on a greater society.
Do you know
But
how
again,
many?
it
Do
also
you know
tells a
how
lot
many
about
people?
protest.
And again, I said to my friend the other day, I said we look at things from one perspective, but do you know because of that court case in just one court in a whole court complex where you have hundreds or thousands of people showing solidarity to these boys, but prevented the cases of innocent men who are also languishing in mile 2 from progressing.
Yeah.
So you see how the rights of one person in one hand dastardly affected the rights of another person.
That's very true.
So
But
that
that's
is
why
why
government got to do right.
we have to find a fine balance between the two.
The
But
fine balance is the
I think
government to do right.
yes, absolutely. The government always has the government has to do right. They have no choice. But I think we need to wrap it up
Yeah,
there.
we caught it at that.
Yeah.
It was a great conversation. We will reconvene on Thursday.
And this was impromptu because we were not prepared for it.
This
But
we were supposed
Thursday,
not to be stayed too long, but of course
yeah.
we will keep it on a specific
But
topic on
Thursday, 8
Thursday.
p.m. Gambian time. It's a date. Thursday, 8 p.m. Gambian time. We'll put the topic to be discussed at least 24 hours prior to the date. So on Wednesday at about 7 p.m., 8 p.m., the topics of discussion will come out on Wednesday. And then on Thursday, we'll come on live the Truth and Justice Table, unfiltered, unbiased, at any time, and 8 p.m. next week, Thursday. So, Doctor,
Have a good night, sir.
thank you very much. Have a good night.
Ayo, thank you for listening.
All right. God bless.